Welcome to Recovery, the Whole Enchilada, a podcast dedicated to exploring layers of healing and transformation within the recovery community and among individuals seeking personal growth and fulfillment. I'm Peg McDermott, and I'm here with my beautiful, lovely, wonderful co-host,
Heather Hageman.
Hello, Heather.
Hi.
And today we will be talking about working with a recovery guide. Some call a sponsor, others a mentor, but it's a guide that can help us light the way on this journey that we're on and are on one day at a time, but a lifelong process. I know it has been good for me to have that in my life, to have someone who knows me well and will always be honest. I can trust them to tell me the truth. We wanted to start with working with a recovery guide. I'm going to call the recovery guide a sponsor, but you may call it anything you want. But for me, I was looking for someone that had solid recovery, that had something that I wanted. And when I first got sober, I would hear someone share and I'd be like, I really want what that person has. And at the time, I couldn't really tell you what that thing was. I just felt a sense of safety and a real solid sense of recovery. This is a journey I don't want to take alone. And that person, I think, can really shine the light that I need right now on the path that I need. Then you take in personalities and communication styles, because chemistry does matter. It mattered for me. I've had several in my journey, and the one that I have now is fantastic. I adore her and do try not to put her on a pedestal, because the only place to go on a pedestal is where? Down. So she's human, she's in recovery, and I really need to keep that right-sized in my mind. But I do ask about, when I initially looked for a sponsor, I was looking at, how do you sponsor? What are your expectations? And someone that doesn't rush the process for me, and someone that felt safe and really went with my intuition. There was just something in me that knew this person is the person I want to work with right now. So what do you think?
I think you've got some valid points there. Absolutely want to listen to someone that walks the walk and that I relate to. I needed someone who, in my case, that had kids, that was married. I mean, there's certain things I was looking for, and kind of in my age or older kind of thing. But Peg, I have such a different story than most that I don't really reveal it.
Of course you do.
I don't really reveal it a lot to people. I would not suggest this, and I guess I'll just be honest and talk about this. When I first got into recovery, I was predominantly around men, and then I was suggested that I should go to women's meetings to find a mentor. And so I went to women's meetings, and I just did not, I was probably about 6 weeks into it, not really resonating, not really finding anybody. So I just sort of went back to my old thinking, well, there's nobody here. Actually, I know what happened is I asked a woman, and she said, oh, I can't. I've got too many sponsees right now. You can definitely take my number, but I really encourage you to keep looking. And my poor new me thought, oh, great. I'm being rejected the first time I ask anybody. So I didn't want to ask anybody again. Okay.
Mm.
And so about 6 weeks into sobriety, I went out to a place called Mesquite, Nevada, and it was a gambling town. And I went there with my folks and my kids. We drove from Colorado there, and we met my brother and his family at Mesquite from California. It was sort of the middle point. And now I'm at a casino and I'm surrounded by alcohol. And I was in a relapse prevention group at the time, and I had a therapist, and I kind of considered her my mentor. And that's what happens a lot of times. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. Therapists can be that too. And so the suggestion was I needed to go to a meeting while I was there. And I was like, how am I going to do that? I don't have a car. But I ended up talking my brother into driving me to a meeting, which was on the outskirts of town in a little trailer in 110 degrees with fans in the trailer and sand dunes. And I walk into this trailer not knowing what I'm walking into. And in that trailer are the most desertly looking people that I've ever seen. Deserty, is that a word? And I was sharing how, yeah, my brother just gave me a ride here. And while we were driving here, I told him I was going to an AA meeting. He says, yeah, you should be going to a meeting. You were such a horrible drinker. Do you remember that time you forgot to pick me up? And this was in Hawaii, and I was coming out of a movie theater, and we got jumped by a bunch of Hawaiian guys, me and my buddy, and you had to get me at the police station. And I'm thinking to myself, I hardly remember that. But this is this disease, right? This is the wreckage that I did in the past to other people. So my brother just so nicely reminded me of that as he dropped me off at this meeting in the middle of the desert and drove off to go get something to drink because he was drinking. I'm telling you this because I shared about that, and I shared about how new I was. And there was an older man, probably in his 70s, that was running the meeting. And he said to me, his name was Ray. And he came up to me after the meeting. He says, I don't normally do this, but he goes, I think that how long are you here for? I said, I'm going to be here. And then I'm in Colorado. And he says, do you have a sponsor? I said, I haven't gotten one yet. He said, well, listen, I'm not going to be your sponsor, but I will give you my phone number and you can reach me. And here's my email. So he gave me both of that. And I thank you for sharing. And I walked away. So fast forward, because I couldn't get away. I couldn't get out. We went back to Colorado, and I didn't have the capacity to go to meetings there. I didn't have access to a car. And so I called him, and he was so kind and so gentle. And when he said, he talked me through the fire that I was in. And Peg, what ended up happening is I ended up using him as my mentor for 2 years. I did. And I look at it and I think, well, that probably was a great idea because I could keep him in Colorado and I could be in Virginia. But I called him 3 times a day, daily for 2 years. And I wrote him emails, stacks and stacks of emails. So by the time I went back to Mesquite 2 years later, I brought my parents. I was sober, and I brought my kids, and they had a meeting, and he had a cake for me. He gave me my emails, which was a stack high, probably about a foot deep. He said, here's your first 2 years, burn it, and walked me through the journey. But I did not want to do my 4-step with him. So I found a woman to do that. And anyway, so from him, I started to ask women because I felt now that I had trust. And I think that's something that we really need to work with. And I need to let you understand about me. I trusted men more than I did women. And this is a common thing I've heard women say. And I think it was probably the perfect thing for me at that time. And maybe I needed that father energy, that whatever it was, it worked. It kept me sober. And he was so kind and listened to me go through all the different things I went through. And eventually I started asking people, and I still had a hard time. I'll stop here, but I started asking women, and I'll tell you about that. But that one was my first 2 years. Okay. And that's how I found trust. And he empowered me then to ask women to help me and to go to women's meetings.
Yes.
Did you know that story?
I think you have shared that, yeah.
Okay. Share it a lot because I feel like I'm breaking some major rule. Like women don't sponsor men and men don't mentor women. I mean, it's sort of like a spoken, like they say we have that thing about 13th stepping people.
Right.
Can you explain that?
That happens way too much in our community, which it saddens me, but it's really wanting to date someone when they haven't finished at least 1 year of recovery.
Yeah.
And that is what I understand it to mean. And I think that happens way too much. I do think that our program is about people in recovery, and people aren't perfect. The program's perfect, but people in it aren't perfect. We're not supposed to be. And with that said, there is a lot of merit in a woman going to women's meetings and a man going to men's meetings just because of the nuances with the genders, but also because there are people that have ulterior motives.
Yeah.
And you know that in the beginning, at any time in recovery, trust and safety is important, but especially when you're first getting sober. And so that trust is imperative. And it was for me because I didn't have a lot of trust toward anybody. And I really learned how to trust people by being honest and committing to my guide, my mentor, my sponsor. And every sponsor I've had has said women's meetings are safe, especially for newcomers. And that's not to say we can't go to mixed meetings when we have gotten a little more time, because we can. I think that men and women have powerful messages and they're different. And I like to hear messages from men as well. So I do like to go to mixed meetings, but I didn't in the beginning. And I don't when I'm not in a good emotional space. I feel if I need to be more emotionally vulnerable, it's easier for me to do that in a women's meeting.
Right.
But I have heard the same thing you mentioned is there are a lot of women that come into the rooms that don't trust other women. And I think probably with good reason. Something happened. I came in not trusting men. So, I mean, we all have our trust. I had my trust issues, but I didn't have trust issues with women. It was primarily more with men, and it was because of my upbringing. I had a rageful alcoholic father, and that is something that I have worked through because I realize and believe wholeheartedly today that men are fantastic. They really are, and I really love their messages. And there's a time and a place for me to be in a mixed meeting, and there's a time and a place when I can't be in one. And it's usually where my emotional state is. And when we come in, we're vulnerable, we're learning the lay of the land here. And not everyone respects that. The very beginning, for me, it was about going to women's meetings because that's what helped me. And I knew I didn't have a lot of trust. So I had to build it somewhere, and I built it in those meetings and with my sponsors. And the trust had to work both ways in that mentor, mentee, sponsor, sponsee relationship. I had to commit. I had to show up when I said I was going to show up. I had to do the homework that she gave me. And I had to be honest with her. What's the point of having a mentor or sponsor if you can't be honest with them? Sponsorship is one of the biggest tools in our toolbox. And being able to talk to someone about having a meltdown over something or a breakdown or just a confusing life issue, that guide for me helps give me perspective, a different perspective than my filter. Because my filter is going to be skewed to my beliefs. And I need someone who knows me and that I trust that will tell me the truth, but in a loving and supportive way. And others need a tougher love. So I believe we're guided to the right person when we need that person. And I have been with every sponsor I've had, they have helped me in different ways. And they helped me not to pick up a drink. They shared their experience, their strength, and their hope. So if I come to them with a life pain, they can usually relate to that pain and share what they went through and how they were able to get through it without drinking. That's what I needed to hear. And there are some issues and subjects that we just bring to our sponsors that we don't get into in too much detail in a meeting. That's been my experience. That's something to go to my sponsor and discuss in more depth because she knows me. She's heard my story. She knows my defects. She loves me and I love her. It's such a special and I believe sacred relationship for both the sponsor and the sponsee, for both the mentor and the mentee. Whichever way you're comfortable labeling, I guess, or whatever feels right for you, use that term. And like Heather mentioned, and I agree, therapists can be great guides. Sometimes we'll have 3 or 4 guides in our lives. How wonderful is that? So I can't put enough emphasis on the importance of having that guide that's walked before me and can share with me what that path has been like for them and how they overcame certain things.
I think the other beautiful thing about learning how to have your, like, really an authentic relationship as an adult, as a sober adult, and really being heard and listened to, but also sharing things that you haven't shared with anybody. The secrets, we're sick as our secrets. That's one of the sayings. And yet to have the person look at you and go, "Oh, I've done that. Yeah, oh yeah, you want, I'll up you one, blah blah blah." Like just kind of joking around it because we take ourselves so seriously, and that's something that my first sponsor, Ray, said to me: "You have to learn not to take yourself so seriously." I know I've mentioned this before, but being able to have this person who, and see, so I am going to say what I learned from 2 years of a long distance relationship, I don't suggest, because you really, it wasn't giving myself the fullness of the experience by having the person in person, like space time. Because what ideally, it would be good to be in the same meeting as the person weekly so that you can really see how they share or what they talk about, and you can network with friends and all that. But it's good just to get to know the person in that realm and then also get to know them one-on-one. That's really like the ideal way to do it, that I would say. So, but so when I came back and I didn't want to do my inventory of my life, especially a sexual inventory with a man. That's just not appropriate. And so I found a woman, and she was so willing to be recipient of that. And so I ended up having her be my mentor for a while. But here's another thing that can happen. You end up, sometimes this can happen. I don't know how to explain it, but sometimes you can be the one that's actually helping them. Like you're the one that's helping the mentor. Like they're coming to you and you're helping them, when it really should be a giving one-way street in the beginning, especially in the early years. You get me on that one? And so what happened to me is, because I had so much psychology, I had so much this and that, I would get with a woman and want her to be my mentor, but then she would be calling me to financiers, and I was feeling that wasn't working for me. So I had to go through a couple of those kind of experiences. And then I found a mentor who was thank you very much, PhD clinician, psychotherapist, is what I needed that. So that worked out really well for a while. But guess what? She doesn't live near me. She lives out of state. So there we are again, doing the same thing again. And so and this is years and years of trying to find this mentor. And I actually decided that what works for me is that I have a mentor friend, more like a mentor friend in the program. And then I also have a yoga mentor. And I would say that, and now I have learned the skills to be able to go inside and listen to my wise self, but I don't react like I used to. I respond and I run things by people. So I have a group of high vibe wise women that I am accountable to, that I process with, and you're one of them, Peg. And I love that as we grow and mature in this sober journey, that we begin to have like real friendships that are based complete honesty, and that I can call you up. I know I can call you up anytime I need you right now, and you would come.
Mhm.
And but this took years of us getting to know each other, sharing, we being with each other in groups and that kind of thing. I just want to say it doesn't have to look like a certain way.
Right.
I patched it together and figured it out how to work it. I always had the psychotherapist, I have the person in the recovery rooms, and then I have my yoga person. And so I had like a team. I created this team of people. Early on, you need one person to kind of get to know you. If you're spreading, if you have two, I know
Yeah.
people that go ahead and have two people, two sponsors, and then they're
Right.
pitting each other. There's games we play with this. There's also games like we're rejected from somebody a sponsor that says, I can't do this anymore because I've got things in my life and I can't do this anymore. And then I go, well, they're rejecting me. I mustn't be worth it. I'm going to go out and drink. Pour me a drink. I've seen people do that.
Um,
So this relationship is pretty sacred, and it needs to be respected. And also, I just want to bring this up and you can finish up on this. I also sponsor, right? I was sponsoring a lot of people, but I began to realize that I can't be told what to do, and nor can people be told what to do. And
right.
that is something I wanted to look for in a mentor that listens, that suggests, that even asks me, do you want to hear what I'm going to suggest here? I mean, I really, I really want to just emphasize that we can't tell people and how to run their lives. We
Mm.
can say, listen, I'm going to suggest this to you. You don't have to do it. It's always a choice. I am going to add a little PS. I strongly suggest this. Especially with the young ones that would want to date like in the first month of sobriety. Please
Mhm.
don't date. But I'm just saying that this is another added piece, establishing the trust, being listened to, but me not having to take care of you, because that's what I would do. I'd always end up taking care of the mentor or the sponsee, and I had to learn to stop doing that. That's my other program. My codependency
Uh-huh.
program.
Uh-huh.
But allowing allowing a person just to give to me and and listen to me, it's just been phenomenal. And I've created it on my own now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I usually run something by the yoga world and the recovery world. That's how I work now.
Yeah. You walk the talk for sure. And you mentioned something about having wise, high vibe women. And I think having that mentor, sponsor as part of that circle is important, perhaps a therapist, definitely friends that have some good, solid recovery under their belt. I will call and reach out to you and others to make sure I'm getting my filter is speaking to me truthfully, because these narratives will start spinning and I need someone to say, okay, what do you think about maybe looking at it this way? And it's usually a suggestion. And I was willing to listen to those suggestions. Now, if someone had been very forceful and said, listen, you need to do X, Y, or Z, I wouldn't have done it. I needed someone that I respected, but was able to frame it in a way that I would be like, yeah, that makes sense to me, because they would share from their experience and why it worked for them. and that's all they could share with me. And when I found that to be the case as a sponsor, but the sponsor, that initial relationship with a mentor sponsor has really, it developed for me a very healthy template of how I can interact with others in that, in a trustworthy, honest way. And that really helped me to be a sponsor to women in the rooms and share with them my recovery. But my sponsors have shown me and taught me from their example what works and what doesn't. And that really helped me to build a trust that I didn't have. And it started with that relationship. And then it expanded into my recovery friendships now. And I also have a therapist, and I trusted her implicitly. And that also helped build that trust muscle. And then the being willing to stay open and listen to suggestions and not let myself get in the way of them. That doesn't seem right. I'm going to do it my blah, 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 blah. Well, when I've done it that way, it usually doesn't work out. Like I will go back to the sponsor and say, you were right. And it's not about wanting to be right or wrong. It's about wanting to keep us sober one day at a time. And that has been such a gift. And it's a huge tool in our toolbox. And what I have found is those of us that have accumulated a few 24 hours, it's important for us to remember that we need to stay in touch with our sponsors, our mentors. And that can be challenging at times because the phone's always weighed very heavily. It's been a very heavy weight for me to use the phone. But I've learned I will talk and share when I need to if I'm in the weeds. And it's important to have that relationship, that bond with someone that you can go to them with anything and they know everything about you, every single thing they know. I mean, wow. I was like, how many of us could say that before we got here? That there's one person that knows everything about us. I would not have allowed that to happen. The armor was too thick for me. So that's such a comfort for me to know that there's someone that does know everything, that there are no secrets.
Something that came up while you were speaking, I was thinking how this picking up the phone and how hard it is. And I like to educate people now that we have such a scientific backed knowledge base of trauma and what happens to people, childhood stressors and challenges, kids growing up in dysfunctional families and what happens to us, to our bodies and all that. And one of the things that we know now is that we need social engagement, and we need connection with one another to help our nervous systems to be calmed and soothed. And it's not just in facing you right now and I'm talking to you. It's also hearing a voice on the phone that's soft and loving and kind. And when I'm standing, jokingly, I've never stood outside of a liquor store, but I have been in a bar as a sober person. But I'm calling my sponsor and flipping out, and my sponsor saying, I really need you just to slow down and just be gentle in the way you're talking right now. Okay. Just soften your voice. This is a wonderful thing. And there's this theorist, Dr. Porges, who wrote this book on polyvagal theory. It's a big words in the trauma field, but it's all about this need of having safe social engagement as another way to dial yourself down. So there's like the fight, there's flight, there's freeze, but we also have social engagement as one of our ways of living in the world. And we want to live in social engagement. We want to live in connection. We want to be curious. We want to be open. We want to be willing. And so that is the beauty of the way things are set up with a mentor. Like you're able to, no matter what's going on, and you're being hijacked by some kind of rage, let's say, and if you can pick up the phone rather than pick up a drink to be like the firefighter to put water on what's going on, you can get that nourishment from your mentor who's dialing you down with their voice and bringing you back. And I think that is probably one of the most important things to understand. This is why we cannot do this alone. This is why we need people, at least starting with one person. We need a person that gets us, that sees us, that believes in us, that hears us, that loves us, that shares openly from the heart with no judgment, with complete acceptance. It's almost like a reparenting in a way, right? For a lot of us, a lot of hurt little girls in adult bodies who didn't have the mothers that they should have had. And which is probably explains why they don't want to have a relationship with a woman, because they were so hurt. But we, as people in recovery, as we go along and we do this work with a mentor, then we are able to be mentors, and we are able to pass on what was given to us, because I never want to forget the hours and hours that every person has given me along the way, free time they've given me to help me become who I am. And I think the hurdle for people is to not say to themselves, oh, I don't want to bother them, they're busy. I want that taken out of your mindset. I want you to bother them. I want you to reach out. What is hard for you to understand, if you're listening to this right now and you don't want to call your sponsor because you don't want to bother them because they're too busy, get rid of that. If they're too busy, you may not want that person for a sponsor. You want somebody who can be there for you. But if they're there for you, they get a huge gift from you when you call them. It is reciprocal. It is a matching, coherent heart. And it's a beautiful frequency that can happen. It's so beautiful. And I can't tell you the tears that I would have calling my mentor and how I would come back from that. And then my sponsees, or people that I'm mentoring, my mentees, whatever, calling me, and to be able to give it back. It is beyond amazing. It's an extraordinary way to heal. And I feel like that's why I bow to the setup of the mentor sponsee mentee relationships, sponsee relationships. I bow to that because it is sacred, and it is the step forward into recovery, into this beautiful life of living authentically and having the truest, most amazing friendships with people. And Peg, you're one of my dearest people. And when I think of you, my heart just surges with love. And sometimes my eyes tear up because to be able to love so deeply and not have anybody complain about it or fight you or say you're wrong. I mean, but to have that person allow you to love them so deeply, and they love you. I mean, it's just so beautiful. You can see that this really touches me, because this is probably one of the most important things that we need to do, whether it is in rooms, but I really highly encourage that, finding that wisdom person, that match. It's just vital. And if it doesn't match, you don't give up.
Never give up. Yeah. No, because they're out there. Yeah. They're out there. And you know what? They need you as much as you need them.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah. It's a two-way street. I can't tell you how much I've been helped and healed and made whole by the women I've worked with and the women that have worked with me. And you're right. They have given so much time, and we in turn are able to do the same. And it's just one person at a time. That's all we need, is just one person at a time to help them one day at a time. And yes, I love you with my whole being. And what we have as friends is so rare. And what we have in this community is so rare. It really is. I feel very grateful and blessed for these opportunities to truly, authentically love someone and be loved in return and be able to accept that. Give it and accept it. That is a gift. So I do love you, my friend. And thank you for your ongoing mentoring of me and others. It's a huge gift. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of Recovery, the whole enchilada. Next time, we're going to be talking about making things right. And that's self-reflection, direct versus indirect amends, living amends, timing, preparation. I think that's going to be a definite crowd pleaser. What do you think?
I know, that's a good one.
It's going to be a good one.
Yeah.
So hopefully you will join us, and please remember you are not alone on this journey of healing and transformation. And until next time, stay strong and keep growing. We love you.